Throughout my life, I've been fortunate to learn from the best, those who teach not just with words, but with actions. And today, I want to share with you one of the habits that completely transformed the way I live, the way I decide, and the way I act. A habit that didn't just change my present, it rewrote the entire direction of my future. That habit is simple to name, but profound in its impact, the habit of thinking. Thinking might sound obvious. Everyone thinks, right? But the truth is, very few people do it consciously, deeply, and deliberately. Most people assume thinking just happens, like breathing or walking, something that doesn't require effort. They wake up in the morning, go through their day, respond to whatever comes up, make quick decisions, and keep moving. And without realizing it, they're living a reactive life. Not a chosen life, not a designed life, but a life of automatic responses shaped by their surroundings, circumstances, or momentary emotions. But real thinking, the kind of thinking that successful people do, the kind of thinking that changes your life, is a completely different story. Strategic, reflective, creative, and critical thinking is a skill. And like any skill, it can be trained. It doesn't appear overnight. It takes time to strengthen. But once you learn how to think with intention, everything changes because you stop being a victim of what happens to you and you become the architect of what you choose to build. I remember a time when I was constantly busy, working nonstop, putting in all the effort I could, but I wasn't getting anywhere. I'd move from one task to the next, always chasing the urgent, my schedule always full. But my progress was minimal. Then someone asked me a question I'll never forget. How much time do you spend each day just thinking, not worrying, not reacting, just thinking, planning, reflecting, visualizing, asking yourself if you're on the right path? And for the first time, I realized I wasn't thinking. I was just doing. I was reacting. I was moving, but I wasn't thinking. That moment changed everything. I began to carve out time, just 10 minutes a day, to think. At first, it was uncomfortable. I'd sit down with a notebook and my mind would wander. But over time, I discovered something powerful. Thinking is like training a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger it becomes. And when you start asking yourself better questions, you get better answers. Questions like, what am I doing that no longer serves me? What decisions am I avoiding? What can I improve today that will impact my future? Where is my energy going and what results am I really getting? Thinking isn't a waste of time, it's an investment. It's the foundation for everything else. Brian Tracy used to say it clearly, successful people think differently. They think before they act. And they act with clarity because they think with purpose. That's when I understood that thinking is the beginning of all transformation. Nothing changes in your life until you change the way you think. And here's something else. It's not just about thinking, it's about thinking strategically, creating moments of clarity in a world filled with noise. We're bombarded with information, distractions, notifications. We're constantly connected, but disconnected from ourselves. And thinking is exactly that, reconnecting with your goals, your vision, your purpose. When you take time to think, you take back control. You ask yourself, is what I'm doing really getting me closer to the life I want? Because if it's not, then yes, you're busy, but you're not being effective. One of the practices that helped me the most was writing. I started journaling. At first, it was messy, just dumping thoughts onto the page. But little by little, that became clarity. When you see your thoughts on paper, you can analyze them, question them, improve them. That's where true transformation begins. When your ideas stop floating around in your head and start taking shape in front of you. Structured thinking gives you direction, and without direction, even your best efforts get wasted. You can work hard every day, but if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up tired, not successful. Clear thinking helps you identify what's urgent and what's important, what pushes you forward and what holds you back. The more you think, the better you decide. And the better your decisions, the better your results. This habit, so simple on the surface, is one of the least practiced because thinking requires stopping. And in a world that celebrates speed, pausing feels like a luxury. But it's in that pause where wisdom lives. It's in those quiet moments where the best ideas, the most creative solutions, and the smartest decisions are born. So today, I want to invite you to do something different. You don't have to change everything at once. Just start by carving out a few minutes each day to think. Turn off the noise. Step away from distractions. Grab a notebook and ask yourself, am I where I want to be? What should I stop doing? What can I start doing today that will shape my future? And do it every day. Because that small habit, repeated over time, can be the difference between a life lived on autopilot and a life lived on purpose. Thinking is the first step to everything else. It's the invisible habit that holds up every other habit. And if you choose to cultivate it, you'll notice something remarkable. Your mind becomes sharper, your decisions clearer, your path more focused. Because in the end, as Jim Rohn used to say, the difference between those who achieve what they want and those who don't lies in how they think and what they do with that thinking. The second habit that completely transformed my life was understanding the true power of decisions. Most people don't realize it, but the life they're living today is the direct result of the decisions they made yesterday. Every choice, no matter how small, shapes your destiny. This was one of the most important lessons I learned from my mentor, and one that had a lasting impact on my path. He used to say, your life is not the result of your circumstances, it's the result of your decisions. And for a long time, I didn't grasp how deep that statement really was. I believed my situation was because of the economy, my background, my luck, other people. But one day, during a brutally honest conversation, he asked me, what decisions are you making every day that are keeping you stuck? That question stopped me cold, because I had never stopped to think about my daily choices. I'd just wake up, go through my day, react to what came up, complain when things didn't go well, but I wasn't choosing with intention. I wasn't asking, does this move me closer to the life I say I want? I wasn't deciding with purpose. I was just surviving. And from that moment forward, I started looking at everything differently. I realized that every small action is a decision. Choosing what to eat, when to wake up, who to spend time with, how to respond to problems, how to manage money, what you consume mentally. Every one of those decisions added up creates your life. It's not the big, dramatic choices that shape your future. It's the small, repeated daily ones. There's a massive difference between drifting and deciding. To decide means to take ownership, to act consciously, to understand that your outcomes aren't mostly determined by what happens to you, but by how you choose to respond. I remember a turning point in my own journey. I was frustrated, tired, feeling stuck, and instead of blaming the world, I made a different kind of decision. I decided that I wasn't going to wait for things to change. I was going to change. And that one decision, small, quiet, personal, shifted everything. From that day on, I began making decisions that aligned with growth, not comfort. And here's something I learned that most people overlook. Sometimes it's not about what you decide to do, it's about what you decide to stop doing, what you decide to no longer tolerate, what you choose to leave behind. Sometimes the most powerful decision is saying, this ends here, because closing that door opens another, one that actually leads you somewhere better. Decisions also reflect your values. Every time you choose, you're showing what you truly believe in, what you prioritize, what vision you're living by. If you say health matters to you, but you constantly choose what damages it, you're showing the truth through your decisions. If you say you want financial freedom, but you spend impulsively every month, your decisions are pointing in the opposite direction. The truth isn't in what you say, it's in what you choose. Jim Rohn put it this way: it's easy to make decisions that pull you away from your dreams. It's also easy to make decisions that pull you closer. But the easiest thing of all is not deciding. And that's the most expensive mistake you can make. Indecision is a decision, one that leaves your future in the hands of chance, one that keeps you repeating the same cycles year after year. Because when you don't choose with intention, your life becomes a reaction, not a creation. If you look back and feel like something didn't turn out the way you wanted, don't blame yourself. Observe. Ask, what decisions brought me here? And then ask the most powerful question of all: what decisions can I start making today to take me where I want to be? Deciding isn't always easy. Sometimes it means saying no to what's easy, no to what's popular, no to what everyone else is doing. But it also means saying yes to your vision, yes to your future, yes to becoming the person you were meant to be. And the beautiful thing about decisions is this: every single day you get a new chance. It doesn't matter what your past looks like. Today you can choose differently. Today you can shift direction. Today you can start building a life that's truly aligned with who you want to become. The quality of your life depends on the quality of your decisions. So choose with vision, choose with intention, choose with courage, because every decision you make is a step toward your future. And if you choose well, every step counts. The third habit that created a massive shift in my life was making daily learning a priority. And I'm not just talking about reading or studying or gathering random information. I'm talking about committing to growth. Making learning a conscious choice, a daily routine, a way of life. Because here's what I discovered: your mind is like a garden. Every day, something is being planted in it. Ideas, thoughts, beliefs. And eventually, those seeds grow into the way you see the world and the way you live in it. The only question is, what kind of seeds are you planting? For a long time, I wasn't planting anything useful. I didn't read much. I wasn't intentional about what I listened to. I filled my days with distractions and entertainment, and I told myself I was too busy to learn. But then I hit a point where I realized I was stuck. I kept making the same mistakes, thinking the same way, getting the same results, and nothing was changing until someone gave me a book. It didn't seem like a big deal at the time. I wasn't a reader. I didn't see the point, but out of respect, I opened it. And what I found in those pages changed everything. It was like someone had reached into my mind, turned on a light, and said, "Look, there's more." That book introduced me to new perspectives. It challenged my assumptions. It showed me that success wasn't about luck. It was about habits, mindset, and daily choices. And most importantly, it showed me that everything I wanted to become could be learned. From that day on, I made a decision. I would never stop learning. I started with just a few pages a day. Then I added audio programs, courses, seminars. I started asking better questions, listening more intentionally, surrounding myself with people I could learn from. Not because I wanted to be impressive, but because I didn't want to stay the same. And what I noticed was this: the more I learned, the more I changed. Not just in what I knew, but in how I thought. I started seeing problems differently. I started making better decisions. I began to act with more confidence, more clarity, more direction. And it wasn't because I suddenly became smarter, it was because I started thinking differently. Learning gives you power, not just intellectual power, but personal power. The power to choose differently, to respond wisely, to create new outcomes. And the best part is, you don't have to learn it all at once. Just a little every day is enough to completely reshape your life over time. But here's the challenge. Most people say they want to grow, but they don't prioritize learning. They'll spend hours scrolling, watching, reacting, feeding their mind junk food, and then wonder why their life isn't moving forward. But growth isn't passive. Growth is intentional. I once met a young man who told me he wanted to be successful. He had ambition, talent, hunger. But he said, "I don't really read. I don't have time." Yet he had time for shows, for endless content, for distractions. And I told him something that I'll now tell you. Your future will be shaped by what you feed your mind. Nothing more, nothing less. I've also met people who had far fewer resources, but who made learning a daily habit. Just 10 pages a day, just one podcast a morning, just one deep conversation a week. And in a few years, their entire mindset was different. And because their mindset changed, so did everything else. Their confidence, their finances, their health, their relationships. And it all started with one decision: I will keep growing. You don't have to become a scholar. You don't need a degree to grow. You just need to stay curious, to stay open, to seek truth, and to put what you learn into practice. Because information without application is just entertainment. But when you apply what you learn, you grow, you evolve, you win. So let me challenge you. Make learning a daily non-negotiable. Feed your mind with ideas that stretch you, challenge you, inspire you. Turn off the noise and tune in to wisdom. Because the more you expand your thinking, the more you expand your future. Growth is never accidental. It's always intentional. And the ones who never stop learning, never stop rising. The fourth habit that completely changed the direction of my life was becoming intentional about who I spend my time with. I didn't understand it at first, but over the years I learned something powerful. Your environment doesn't just influence you, it shapes you. It silently molds your thoughts, your decisions, your expectations. And if you're not careful, you'll end up thinking like the people around you without even realizing it. I used to hang out with people who were good, friendly, well-meaning, but they were stuck. They complained a lot. They didn't dream big. They talked more about problems than possibilities. They lived in the past instead of building a future, and for a while I didn't think much of it. After all, they were my friends, my coworkers, my circle. But then I started noticing something troubling. I was thinking like them, talking like them, making excuses like them. Without even realizing it, I was lowering my standards to fit in. Then I met someone who lived differently. He had clarity, purpose, discipline. His questions were different. His conversations were focused. His mindset was on another level. And just by being around him, I began to see the contrast. He made me realize something I hadn't considered. If you want to change your life, you have to change your environment. That didn't mean cutting everyone off. It meant choosing who had access to my mind. Because exposure is powerful. You become what you're around consistently. There's a quote that changed my perspective. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. At first, I thought that was an exaggeration, but then I looked at my circle and I understood. If your closest 5 people complain all the time, you'll start complaining too. If they make excuses, so will you. If they settle for average, guess what? You will too. But if your 5 closest people read, think big, take action, grow, you'll grow with them. Because your environment doesn't just influence you, it pulls you. It's not about being better than anyone. It's about choosing direction, choosing alignment, choosing influence. I've seen people with amazing potential who stayed stuck for years simply because they stayed in the wrong environment. And I've seen others with no special talent rise quickly because they surrounded themselves with the right people. I remember someone I coached who had big goals. He had discipline, energy, passion, but his circle mocked his ambition. Every time he spoke about his dreams, they told him to get real, to be careful, to stop trying so hard. And little by little, he started believing them. Until one day, he made a decision. He changed his circle. He found mentors. He joined new communities. He got around people who thought bigger. And just a few years later, his life looked nothing like before. That's the power of proximity. You rise or fall to the level of your environment. Sometimes, the only thing standing between you and your next level is one conversation. One person who challenges you, one group that stretches your thinking, one community that reminds you you were made for more. And let me be clear, you don't need to cut people off, but you do need to be intentional. You need to protect your mind. You need to decide who gets a seat at your table. Because if you keep feeding your mind with fear, gossip, and negativity, don't be surprised when doubt and distraction become your default. Instead, choose growth. Surround yourself with people who dream, who build, who speak life, people who push you to raise your game, people who ask questions that make you think, people who believe in you but won't let you settle. And if you don't have those people in your life right now, go find them. They're out there, in books, in podcasts, in online communities, in real-life connections. What matters is that you decide, I will no longer let my environment shape me into something I don't want to be. Your circle matters, your environment matters. Who you walk with determines how far you go. Choose wisely. Because the people around you are either lifting you up or pulling you down. And the direction you move depends on who's walking beside you. The 5th habit that radically changed how I saw myself and what I believed was possible was learning to speak to myself differently. It may sound simple, it may even sound unimportant, but it's one of the most powerful shifts you can ever make. Because here's the truth. The most important conversation you'll have in your life is the one you have with yourself. And most people, they lose that conversation before they even begin. They wake up already telling themselves they're not good enough, that they're behind, that they always mess things up, that no matter what they try, nothing changes. And the most dangerous part? They start to believe it. I've met people with all the talent in the world, but they weren't doing anything with it. Not because someone else told them they couldn't, but because they kept telling themselves they couldn't. That voice in their head, the one they never challenged, was controlling their future. I remember a young man who came to me after a seminar. He said, I want to succeed, but I don't think I'm cut out for it. I asked, who told you that? And after a pause, he said, I did. That was the problem. He didn't need someone else to hold him back. He was already doing it himself. And I saw a bit of myself in him, because for years I did the same thing. Every time I failed, I didn't just analyze the mistake, I judged myself for it. Every time something went wrong, I turned it into proof that maybe I wasn't meant for more. I didn't need critics. I had one living in my own mind. Until one day, I asked myself, if I spoke to a friend the way I speak to myself, would they still want to be my friend? That question hit me hard. And from that day on, I made a decision. I would stop tearing myself down and start building myself up. Not with fake positivity, not with shallow affirmations, but with truth, with intention, with kindness. Instead of saying, I always mess up, I started saying, I'm learning. Instead of, I'll never figure this out, I said, I'll figure it out step by step. Instead of, I'm not good at this, I said, I'm getting better every day. These shifts were small, but over time they changed everything, because your mind is listening, and it doesn't know the difference between truth and habit. It believes what you repeat. So if you tell yourself you're not worthy, not smart enough, not ready, you'll start acting like it. But if you speak to yourself with clarity, purpose, and belief, your actions will begin to align with that vision. I met a woman who, for years, told herself she wasn't smart enough to run a business. Every time she had an idea, she shut it down. Until one day, she changed her inner script. She began each morning saying, I'm capable, I'm learning, I will figure this out. And she didn't just say it, she started acting like it. She asked more questions. She took more risks. She kept showing up, and eventually her business took off. Not because she became smarter, but because she stopped convincing herself that she wasn't. You see, it's not just about motivation, it's about identity. How you talk to yourself shapes who you become. And if you want to change your life, you have to start by changing your language. So the next time doubt shows up, don't feed it. The next time fear whispers in your ear, don't agree with it. Speak something better. Speak something stronger. Choose your words like they matter, because they do. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be supportive. Be your own teammate, not your own enemy, because the world is already full of noise, opinions, and pressure. You don't need to add to that. You need to become the voice of clarity and strength inside your own head. Your words create your world, and it all starts with how you talk to you. The sixth shift that completely transformed my life was learning how to think strategically. At first glance, that might not sound revolutionary. After all, we all think, right? We all make decisions. We all have plans. But what most people call thinking is really just reacting. Reacting to problems, reacting to pressure, reacting to whatever life throws at them that day. I used to live like that. I woke up, went through the motions, checked the boxes, tried to stay productive, but I wasn't moving forward in any real way. I was always responding to what was urgent, not acting on what was important. And after a while, I realized that being busy didn't mean I was being effective. In fact, being busy was often the very thing keeping me from building something meaningful. I was putting out fires instead of planting seeds, until I heard one simple idea that stopped me in my tracks. You're not tired because you're doing too much. You're tired because you're doing the wrong things. That hit me, because deep down, I knew it was true. I wasn't exhausted because I was overworked. I was exhausted because I was misaligned. I had no strategy, no filter, no guiding vision. I just kept saying yes to whatever showed up. And every time I said yes to something meaningless, I was saying no to something that actually mattered. That's when I made the shift. I began thinking long-term, not just in theory, but in practice. I started asking better questions. Where do I want to be in 5 years? What do I want my life to feel like, not just look like? Which choices today will make that vision possible? Which ones will pull me further away from it? Suddenly, my priorities changed. I stopped chasing quick wins and started building with intention. I no longer asked, what's easiest right now? I started asking, what's most valuable later? It wasn't always fun. Strategic thinking requires discipline. It requires saying no to things that might feel good in the short term, but steal from your long-term future. But it's also the key to real, sustainable success. And I remember a man who came to me for advice. He had a job that paid well, but drained him emotionally. He said he felt stuck. I asked him, what's your plan? He said, I don't have one. I'm just waiting for something to change. That's what most people do. They wait for the right moment, for the right opportunity, for someone to come fix it for them. But the truth is, change doesn't happen by waiting. It happens when you think strategically, take ownership, and act intentionally. I told him, you have two choices. You can stay comfortable now and regret it in 10 years. Or you can step out of your comfort zone now and build a life you're proud of. He chose the second option. He didn't quit everything overnight. He built a plan. He started learning new skills. He saved money. He made calculated moves. And a few years later, he was in a completely different place, mentally, financially, emotionally. Not because he got lucky, but because he started thinking beyond today. That's what strategic thinking does. It lifts your eyes off the ground and forces you to look at the horizon. It shifts your focus from what do I want now to what will matter most later. Whether it's your finances, your health, your relationships, or your purpose, every area of life improves when you stop reacting and start planning. Most people are so caught up in how they feel right now that they forget to think about where their choices are leading. They want to get in shape but skip the workout. They want financial freedom but spend without intention. They want deep relationships but avoid the hard conversations. They think they have time. But the truth is, time is only on your side when you use it wisely. Every decision you make today is either building your future or borrowing from it. Strategic thinking means looking at your calendar and asking, is this filled with tasks or with progress? It means looking at your bank account and asking, is this helping me build freedom or feeding an impulse? It means looking at your habits and asking, are these getting me closer to who I want to become? Because if you don't ask those questions, life will ask them for you. And by then, the price of not thinking ahead may already be too high. When I started thinking strategically, everything changed. Not all at once, but piece by piece. I wasted less time. I made fewer mistakes. I stopped chasing distractions. And most importantly, I started building something I was proud of. Because strategy is what turns energy into results. It's what separates busy people from impactful people. It's not just about having a plan. It's about having a reason for that plan. It's not just about what you do. It's about why and how you do it. So if you feel stuck, overwhelmed, or off course, don't just do more. Think deeper. Step back. Ask yourself where you're going and whether your actions are aligned with that direction. Because the most powerful shift in your life won't come from working harder. It will come from thinking smarter. When you choose strategy over reaction, you stop surviving and start leading. The seventh habit that shifted everything in my life was this: refusing to be someone who eternally complains about problems and instead becoming someone who actively solves them. It sounds straightforward, but living it is transformative. I remember times when I felt completely stuck, overwhelmed by debt, stressed by opportunities slipping through my fingers, exhausted by the weight of circumstances. I found myself asking, why is this happening to me? But that question only led to frustration, not a way forward. Then, in a pivotal moment, a mentor said to me, that's not the question you need to ask. Ask instead, what are you going to do about it? That switched everything. I realized my problem wasn't the world. It was how I responded to it. Complaining only deepens the chaos, but action, no matter how small, creates movement. From that moment, I chose action over excuse. Where I used to dwell on what I couldn't do, I started asking, what can I do? I started looking for solutions instead of reasons to stop. Every time an obstacle appeared, I learned to ask, how can I overcome this? What resources do I have? What's one step forward? Little by little, that mindset shift turned despair into progress. I began learning new skills, reaching out to people I could learn from, adjusting my habits, and the hole I'd fallen into slowly became the foundation I was building from. I remember clearly someone in my circle who struggled with the same issues for years, pointing to the same excuses, stuck in the same cycle, and I realized, thinkers create solutions, complainers stay stuck. That insight changed how I responded to life. I refused to blame circumstances, the economy, the system, or even myself. I began asking, what's the next move, even if the path isn't clear? That small question fueled decisions, brought clarity, and created momentum, and I learned something powerful. Every problem contains the seed of its own solution. You may not see it right away, but if you persist, you'll find it. More than that, being a problem solver is not just productive, it becomes valuable. In any team, business, or relationship, the person who brings answers is noticed. The person who blames is forgotten. So I adopted a posture of curiosity instead of complaint. When something goes wrong, pause. Ask, what can I control? What is possible? What's the next best step? Even if that step is imperfect or incomplete, it sets the process in motion. And from that movement, clarity comes. Movement leads to momentum. Momentum leads to transformation. So I stopped letting life push me around and started pushing life forward by being someone who acts, not someone who laments. And that shift, simple as it sounds, is the key that separates those who stagnate from those who rise.